Nancy as a marketing director and named her to executive director, a position she held for 6 years. Today, she is the CEO of Nancy Wilhelms Consulting, a strategic consultancy supporting success in arts and business leadership. Nancy is a graduate of CU Boulder, class of 1971, where she was elected to Phi Beta Kappa. She also attended the Rhode Island School of Design and is the past president of the Rocky Mountain Public Relations Group. So before we get into Nancy's presentation, I just want to take a moment to get to know our audience a little better. So you should see a poll launch on your screen. Please take a moment to fill it out so we can see who's here tonight. All right. So let's see here. A few more seconds to let those roll in. All right, so whether you are a current student, a recent alumni, someone a little farther in their career, looking for a new career or looking to make a change, we are so excited you're here. So it looks like, yeah, we have quite a few people who are currently in a job and looking to make a change. So I have a great feeling that Nancy will be able to help you with that. So with all of that, I'm going to turn it over to Nancy.
Well, thank you so much, Jen. I would flabbergasted with that 50% of you are currently in a job looking to make a change. And I think that's the headline story for the career world today. So anyway, it's really great to be here and talk about these things. So thank you, Jen. Thank you, Haley Rose Kohler, and thank you all the sponsors. It's really wonderful to return to see you. So about me and what I do. Well, okay, I wrote a book, okay, and it's available on Amazon, amazon.com. I help people who are seeking a job actually seek a career, work to build a career, and I help people who are currently in jobs move to better jobs. So we're right on track with that. I also help companies and work with their people on how to work and how to work better together. So I work with a lot of people just like you. That's what I do. I'll tell you a little bit about my career at CU. I transferred in during the middle of my sophomore year. I started at a small school in Ohio, and things were happening in the world that just weren't happening there, and they were definitely happening at CU. So I transferred in, and right away, I took a class from Howard Higman and ended up at World Affairs Conference. I think it has a different name now, but the campus was absolutely loaded with journalists and policymakers and key people in politics. And it was fantastic because there was a lot going on and it was happening at CU. And the other thing that was going on was the Vietnam War. And dialogue was encouraged, and that was great. So I've always found that CU is relevant, and that is a really important attribute in today's world. So the other thing that CU is close to nature and skiing. And I do admit that my first weekend at CU, I ended up at Vail, and I'd run into a friend from my former school, and then I returned to start a pretty serious career of studying. So I made incredible friends at CU. They're lifelong friends. And what I found were some really big challenges. The professors were outstanding, and I could challenge myself any way that I wanted to, and I was big on challenging myself. I did end up as an honors student, and if you were still a student and have a chance to bring your grade point average up so that you qualify for the honors program, do it. I was able to take some really unique classes. I actually created a class, and I did an independent study with George Woodman, who was a fabulous art professor, internationally known. So I also had a lot of fun at CU. I got to enjoy nature. I got to ski and got to do lots of great things. But CU is definitely part of my heart. All right. So where did all that lead to me? Well, it led me to Rhode Island School of Design. And then I returned home to my hometown of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So, I returned with a degree in fine arts and a love of photography. And I'm sure that many of you heard, like, what are you going to do with that from your parents and your friends and your families? And I had no idea. So the first thing that I did, I'm going to tell you a few stories about my early career because they illustrate some key points. The first thing that I did was I went looking for jobs in photography. And I met all the photographers in Milwaukee. I met the portrait guys and the commercial photographers and the documentary people and the corporate photographers. And nobody had any jobs. The economy was in a really slow phase. So I took my resume to Schlitz Brewing Company. Okay, and Milwaukee's all about beer. At least it was then. And the HR, the human resources head said, I'm sorry, we do not have any jobs. And the next morning at 8 o'clock, my phone rang. And it was the vice president of marketing for Schlitz. And he wanted to know if I could be in his office at 10, which I could, which is kind of a miracle because I was in my pajamas when the call came in. I really wasn't expecting to hear from Schlitz at 8, but I was there. And what he wanted was to find out about a colleague of his who taught at CU. He was not the least bit interested in me for a job. He didn't have a job really. And I thought, oh, well, this is totally a bust. Totally a bust. But then he turned me over to his photo department. And those guys were major networkers. They knew absolutely everything that was going on in Milwaukee. They knew people, they knew jobs, they knew what was happening and where it was happening. And one thing that I asked them was, do you think there's any opportunity to get a job at Milwaukee Summerfest? Well, Milwaukee Summerfest was happening at the lakefront. It was 10 days of fun and music of the hottest acts that were touring at that time. And it looked like an ideal place to work. And they said, there's no way. You'd have to be the mayor's daughter to get a job there. And I said, okay. So anyway, not listening to that at all, that Friday, I walked into the offices of Summerfest with my resume at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, exactly the wrong time to job hunt. And the executive secretary took my resume and she said, well, we don't have any jobs, but let me show it to my boss. So she showed it to her boss and he came out and we talked a little bit. And he said, well, we're having a birthday celebration. We're serving cake and beer. And so I said, sure, I'd love to join you. You invited me. And what he was doing was, I didn't realize it, he was watching to see if I was a good fit with his team. He did have a job. So as I was headed out the door, he said, oh, by the way, Nancy, we have a job. And if you want it, it's yours. And the job was running the main stage for Milwaukee Summerfest and all of the staging areas. And it was an amazing job. We had, performing on my stage were Aretha and The Doors and B.B. King and Ray Charles and Loretta Lynn. And it was a great, fantastic, fun job. And when it was over, it was a short job. It was a summer job, really, or 4-month job. My boss said to me, well, now I have a job and my job is to find you a job, which was amazing, right? High quality person for sure. And he arranged an interview for me with a gentleman who owned an ad agency. So I went to that interview and I had a pretty strong feeling that I was really interested in advertising because it, pulled in my art background and photography and a lot of things. And during the interview, they said to me, where do you see yourself 10 years from now? I'm sure many of you have had that question. Where do you see yourself 5 years or 10 years? And you've never worked in their field. You can't really tell them anything, okay? So I was totally honest. I would change the answer now. I know a lot more, but then I didn't. And I told them that I would like to own and run a dude ranch. Okay, so here I am in Milwaukee looking for a job with an ad agency, telling them I'd like to own a dude ranch. Well, they actually thought that was a pretty authentic answer. It revealed a lot about who I am. I was honest. It showed them I had goals, showed them I was willing to dig in. I was going to go somewhere. And they took a chance on me. And I started a job with the best mentor I've ever had in my life, a gentleman who was totally invested in my career. He wanted to teach me the ad industry. He wanted to teach me the ins and outs. He wanted me to succeed. He was willing to have me fail, and he would pick me up. He was a fabulous mentor. And I learned from that. I'd had 2 experiences with really exceptional people. And I learned that when you're interviewing for a job, you really are interviewing them as well. You're looking to see if the boss that is potential boss that's talking to you is going to be somebody who's going to stick with you and help you. Are they going to be available? Will they be part of your career? And in this case, I was very fortunate. Then I left there and I went and did a passion project. I traveled the rodeo circuit as a freelance photographer. And I spent a summer doing that. When I returned, people said, don't put that on your resume. Employers will think you're a flake. Well, actually, that's the item on my resume that got it pulled from a stack of 300 where they only interviewed 3 people. And it led to a really fabulous corporate job in communications. So what did I learn from all these things? Well, I learned that it's really important to know and be who you are and to follow your passions. It's really important to find good mentors. And it's really important to trust yourself. Even though people said there are no jobs at Milwaukee Summerfest, I knew I would like to work there, and I went there anyway. So how do you do all those things? Well, I think you really start with knowing yourself. You start with what you love, and I would say make a list of what you love. You start by taking a personal inventory of all your skills. So let's say you've waitressed, right? Well, you're working your way through CU, you waitressed, okay? So you've got skills that came out of that. And what I'm talking about is making a big list of all the skills you have. I'm sure that maybe you know how to code, or maybe you have very wonderful advanced skills, but you also have basic skills. You might know how to problem solve in tricky situations in dealing with customers, because you were a waitress. These things, they all develop. So don't ignore your first jobs, your summer jobs, your early jobs, for all the things that you learned there and all the skills that you pulled together. So when you take a personal inventory of your skills, include those things. If you visit my website, there are some downloads for job seekers. They're free. So you go to nancywilhelms.com, you go to the books section, and you download at downloads for job seekers. And you'll find a personal inventory list and a few other things that will help you start to really work with what are the skills you have? What are the things you really know how to do? And they'll help you start to think outside of perhaps a narrow box of what you've been doing into a much larger universe. So other things, find good mentors along the way. You're interviewing them as they're interviewing you, and trust yourself. If I hadn't, I would have never gotten that job. All right, I'm going to ask you to do an exercise. So if you have a piece of paper, pull it out. If you don't, this will be pretty easy to remember. But I'm going to ask you to write your obituary. Now, imagine that it's 10 years from now, and you're walking on campus in Boulder, and you're wearing your Ralphie Buffalo pin, and one of those flash thunderstorms comes over the Flatirons, and you're struck by a bolt of lightning, and you're dead. We read your obituary in the Boulder Daily Camera a day or two later. Okay, I want you to write 2 obituaries. Okay, so the first one is written to, it's as if you're the person who stays on the track that you're currently on, okay? The path that's comfortable. Maybe it's the path that other people want you to do, but maybe it's not exactly right for you. And given that 50% response rate of people who are looking to make a change, I would say this is probably right up your alley. So if you stay on your current path, what does your obituary look like? So I'll give you like a sample one. Let's see. All right, so this is for Emiko. She worked at the hospital for 10 years. She married her high school sweetheart, James, and had 3 children. Her children are grown and they live in the same town. She was active in the book club at the Women's League. Isn't that nice? Okay, not too exciting. All right, now number 2 obituary that you're gonna write is you on fire, okay? You actually did the things that you wanted to do. You launched all your rockets. You made your dreams come true, or you're in the process of it at that point in time. So it becomes a little different. Emiko became a naval aviator and professional photographer. Her aerial photos are published in best-selling coffee table books. She was married to the Arctic adventurer, Tim Akawana. Their 3 children are grown and pursuing adventures of their own, and it goes on and on and on. You'll like the second obituary. I want you to write it when we're done, and I want you to keep it and get going. Okay, Jen, I understand that we probably have some questions.
Hi, Nancy, thanks so much. I mean, I already started jotting some stuff down here on my little piece of paper on things I really want to do in my life. So that was incredible advice, and I'm so excited to hear more from you. So yes, we did have some questions come in. Our first one is from Olia. So she says, I find myself interested in too many things: psychology, neuroscience, cell biology. How do I pick among these things to make sure I'll enjoy my career for at least a couple decades?
Okay, so Olia, first of all, that's a great problem to have, being interested in so many things. All right, so I don't worry about that. Okay, go through and pick the ones that make you smile. All right, so what are you interested in that feels really fulfilling, that is really, really lights you up beyond being interested in it? And you don't have to be interested in just one thing. I mean, I think you could see in that little example I gave of my career at the start of it. Okay, I love live music, and that took me into one job that led into another job that was a marketing job that I had my photography that led me into a corporate career job. I don't believe you need to limit yourself. What you need to do is be aware that there are so many opportunities, that if you pick the things you love that you really make you feel like you're in touch with yourself, okay, not just intellectually, but that you're in touch with it, you're passionate about it, you really care about it, those are going to be the paths to pursue. So that's where I would start. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Nancy. All right, next one here. Should I try to get informational interviews?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So informational interviews are a little bit scary because sometimes they ask you to approach people you don't even know. So you're approaching somebody within a specific industry looking for information about that industry and about that person perhaps, and about what is a career like in that industry. Be sure you don't make this mistake of thinking that an informational interview is a job interview. Okay, an informational interview may turn into a job interview or may lead its way into a job later on. But it's important to walk in the door with a blank slate and find out what you're trying to find out. And you should have a list of questions compiled before you go into an informational interview. You're trying to find out what the industry is like, what it's like to work in that industry or in that workplace. What kind of background does the person that you're interviewing, what did they bring to it? What do they recommend that you're going to bring as a background, or what might you need, or where might you fit within that industry? How could you get started? Those are good questions. To get an informational interview, it's really good to tap your network. So if you know of somebody who's working in the industry that you're pursuing, that's a way in the door. To have somebody introduce you in to somebody within their company that would be the right person to talk with. If you don't know anybody, there's this really great tool called LinkedIn. And I will talk, about LinkedIn up one side and down the other. If you're not on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn, all right? It's the one way that you can post a profile of yourself. It's like having your own website without having to pay for it. And then in addition to that, it enables you to network and start to build relationships with people from different companies or different industries. So people are friendly in the LinkedIn world if you're not trying to self-promote. If you're genuinely interested or have information of value, you can talk to people and ask them questions, and you can direct message them, DM them, and they'll get back to you. So make yourself aware of what the opportunities are on LinkedIn and get there and use it. It's great for networking. It's great for finding out about jobs that are real jobs in the areas that you might be interested in, being able to talk with real people about those jobs. So you can follow companies, you can follow people at companies, you can do just such a tremendous amount. So if you want an informational interview and in an industry that you have no contacts or connections in, you might just even start with LinkedIn. And even if you can't get in the door to meet somebody, you could meet them via Zoom. So.
Yeah, LinkedIn is an incredible tool. I know I've been on both sides of that in finding connections for my career, and then meeting with people early in their career. So I know the power of LinkedIn is very impressive.
Oh yeah, and combined with Zoom, it's just amazing.
Yes, it's easy to meet people all over the place now. Before you're kind of limited to who you could sort of at a coffee shop maybe. And I found, the ability to meet people from all over the country has really opened up a lot of doors.
Yeah, that's great, Jen.
Yeah,
I'll bet you use it a lot.
I do. Yeah, I'm a big LinkedIn user for sure. All right. Well, we have another question here. This one is from Kristen. So how do you find a mentor when you are not currently working? How do you start that relationship?
All right. Well, finding a mentor is, I know a lot of people are worried about it, because everybody thinks they need a mentor now. Mentors are kind of organic. They happen for the most part. They're a natural extension of what you're doing, who you're meeting for the most part. Not always. It is possible to identify somebody you believe could be a good mentor and start to build a relationship with them. And if you were to do that, it's good to understand what your investment's going to be and what their investment will be. Because when you approach a busy person who's got a career and ask them if they will be your mentor, you're asking for a commitment of time and energy. And it's important that you know that and you respect that up front, and that you're very clear about what it is you're seeking, and that you and your mentor can define the terms. We'll meet, every other week for coffee. We'll do this, or, So being clear about it is really good. I would say if you don't have a mentor, you don't need to worry, because as you work your way into your career further, people are going to appear on your horizon that take an interest in you, or that you see have something that is intriguing to you, that you believe you'll benefit from being around that. So I would say for the most part, it's kind of a natural process, but sometimes you just are stuck by yourself in the universe, and you want somebody to talk with and work with. Then do some good looking around and make an approach. I just like to talk with you about some possibilities. I've always found that if I ask people if they could meet for a cup of coffee, it's a non-threatening thing. Okay. And you can say things like, I'm interested in talking with you about some career moves or some aspects of my career. Could I meet with you for a cup of coffee? And you could meet for a cup of coffee and see how it goes, and see if you actually like that person, if it's a warm feeling, if you might take it to the next step and ask them if they would be a mentor for you.
Awesome. That's great advice. Because I know, starting out my career, I always felt like, who's going to be my mentor? What am I going to do? I have to find someone now. So yeah, knowing that young Jen was okay and just waiting, and finally someone came along was a good choice.
Yeah, that's great. I actually ended up with a fabulous mentor just recently, and you've had a long, good career, and you think you know everything, and you really don't. And, somebody pops up, and boy, they know a lot more than you do. And if they're willing to share, it's fantastic.
That's awesome. Yeah, lifelong learning. We love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have another one here from one of our participants on Zoom. Hi, Nancy. It's the first part. Where do you see potential opportunity today for careers in the visual arts? What is the best way to make a living with skills in this area?
Wow, that's a big loopy question. Okay. Opportunity in the visual arts. Well, not knowing what your skill set is, that's a tough one. Visual arts are a lot more prominent today. There is a lot going on in the visual arts universe. So if you look, let's just look at Boulder, okay? And I'm not in Boulder, but I know that there's University of Colorado, so there's the whole academic environment. There are several museums. There's the whole museum environment. There are several nonprofits. There's the whole nonprofit environment. There are, of course, there's the opportunity to be a visual artist, and that's great. If you can afford that, fantastic, go for it. And it's hard to say, I don't know what is the growth area in the visual arts. Obviously, anything that has to do with social media and digital media is a growth area. So if you can figure out what's going on and be ahead of the curve, that's always good. I have a friend who is profiled in my book, actually, who was involved in actually the advent of cable TV before cable TV happened. And then she rode that to become involved in digital media with Sony. Okay. So she was always a little bit ahead of the curve, and she kept moving up and up and up, but she was looking at where was media going. And I think the visual arts are going into a media driven direction. So if I were to say there's going to be expansion in the visual arts, it's going to be there. But the visual arts are booming. And I think when the pandemic started, everybody felt that the arts were collapsing and funding went away. And it's true. And now funding is coming back. And I think there's renewed energy and things are happening. So it's there.
Yeah, that's great. And do you think there are any skills that someone sort of going into, the visual arts industry needs to make sure they have, or could, good things to promote, skills that you would have that would make you successful in that industry?
Well, I think back to my classes at CU. I think knowing the history of art is a pretty darn good thing. All right. Because then you understand how things evolved in the art world. And especially as you get into contemporary art and what's going on in the art world today. So, I mean, you even have, what are they, NFTs happening in the art world, which, it's all there. But to know the trajectory of how things have happened, I think is very valuable, because the more you know, the more references you have in visual arts, the smarter you are at what you're doing. So I would say getting a good fundamental background on the history of art all the way up to today is really good. And staying current in art. So for example, there are a lot of online publications and contemporary publications that deal with what's going on in art today, and being aware of those and subscribing and reading every day about what's going on in the art world will be smart.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. We have another one here. So I have a PhD degree and have accomplished many things. I know I need to be confident during the interview, but I tend to say some things that might make me look weak. How can I overcome my insecurity?
Okay. Well, in an interview, what you don't say is as important as what you do say. All right. So I would say, if you've had that experience, take a little bit of time to figure out why you felt weak, like what was really going on in that interview. Is it something that you volunteered that you didn't need to volunteer, that caused confusion or caused anxiety? Or was it a response to a question? So a good way to nail an interview is to really do a lot of homework about the company where you're going, to know all about it, and to also research the interviewer. And you can do that also by researching not only what might be posted about them in their company or online bio, but I would also search their social media. Okay. Learn everything you can about the company and the interviewer. So you're going to feel really comfortable in there. And then use that. And also be very clear about why you're looking for a job at that company and where you think your skills are going to fit. Because that'll take you comfortably in the door. The more you know, the more comfortable you'll be. So I would do those things.
That's great. I know interviewing can be intimidating for a lot of people. That's not just a one person problem. So that advice is great. Knowledge is power in an interview.
Oh yeah. I walked into an interview with a portfolio of work. Okay. And it was for a specific job. And the guy just blasted me. He said, "I don't know what you're doing here. You are clearly a photographer," right? And it was early in my career when I was looking around. I can tell you his name still. It was so bad. But he was right. I didn't belong in that interview. And he saw it, and he saw that I was wasting his time. So, it's, those experiences are awful, but I think we all have them and we learn from them. So don't be discouraged. Just, get it together and keep going.
For sure. Even the bad ones can teach you something, right?
Oh, boy, did I learn. Yeah. Boy, I learned from that one.
Awesome. All right. Lots of questions. So I'll go to another one here. All right. My goal in life and in my career is to help people. I've explored options of how to do that by trying to work in higher education, nonprofits, and explore the option of becoming a social worker. In each of those industries, I've hit a ceiling where I'm told the only way I can move up in my career is to get a master's degree or a PhD. am I the only one that struggles with this problem?
No, I think certain careers have ceilings, and it's tough. But is there something that keeps you from doing that? All right, if you love the field, are there some obstacles that you could remove from your life or your universe that would help you accomplish that? Because it just is the way things are. Certain fields, you do have to have a degree and you do have to have the qualifications before they're going to turn you loose on the job. And some of it's by law, some of it is just by industry standard, whatever it is. So sometimes there are obstacles that the only way to get past them is to acknowledge them and go get either the tools, the training, or the education that is required. I wish I had another answer, but I don't really on that one.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Moving right along here. So we have another one. Hi, Nancy. I'm from Milwaukee too.
All
I just
right.
graduated from CU with an English degree and a minor in communication. I applied to grad schools, but decided to take a year off before starting. What can I do during my year off to look good on my resume for grad schools?
Boy, that's tough. Jen, you're closer to the academic world than I am. Why don't you pitch in here? What do you think?
So it's hard. I think it kind of depends on sort of what sort of grad school you're looking at. I know I'm applying to grad school right now as well. So for everyone here, I work at CU Denver, I work in fundraising, and I'm actually in the process of applying to grad school here at CU Denver for a management degree. So I want to manage a team, I want to develop people. That's sort of where I see myself going. And I think a lot of what they ask me is about my experience outside of the classroom. They're interested in my undergrad degree, they're interested in what my grades were, but really they want to know what I did during my time after school to push myself forward. So I think things that you can do like volunteering opportunities, learning more about your field, speaking at your school, giving back to your community. Being an expert in something, I think that's going to look really good on a grad school resume. Yeah,
I
what do
do
you think?
too. And I would throw in there, I think those are all great thoughts. I would also throw in there, if you have a certain passion and you followed it for a year to a good conclusion, that something that makes you a more interesting person. I mean, say you decided you wanted to summit K2 because you're a climber, or, that's a really extreme example, but that you follow that passion, that also makes you an interesting person. So I know that employers, and I think grad schools, look at what is this person doing with their life? Are they helping the planet? Are they learning new things? Are they advancing themselves as a human being? Are they developing skills that are going to be beneficial? I mean, those are the big questions that are looked at. They don't have to be big things. I mean, in some cases, if you say, I took a year and I took care of my elderly grandparents, that's also very valuable. So just focus on things that matter, whether they matter to you or society or, or your education.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to your story about, going on the road and being a freelance photographer with the rodeo. After my undergrad degree, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And I ended up moving to China for a year to teach English. And that is always the first thing people ask me on my resume. And it was 7 years ago. And that's still the first thing that people are interested in is, wow. So you think that kind of conversation started, like you said, sets you apart. I think those kind of experiences are really interesting to employers and to grad schools.
Yeah, and by following your passion, you're doing something, that it's obituary number 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Definitely. All right, well, let's hit a couple more here. I am so out of practice after being out of work due to the pandemic. How can I brush up on job searching and interview skills?
Okay. Well, let's see. There are a lot of resources out there. There's this book, okay, that'll help you. There's a lot in there about interviewing and job researching. You know, it's tough. People are overwhelmed by what's on the internet. All right. So job searching on the internet is maybe not going to take you way too far. Networking is going to take you really far. Okay. So having a circle, I always say you've got several circles. You've got your friends and family circle, then you got your friends of friends and family circle, and then you've got the who do those people know circle. And it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then there are the circles of interest that you have, like do you play soccer? Do you play in a league? You know, do you do sports? Do you belong to any groups, church group, study group, whatever? Networking is going to be really important in terms of making contacts and getting your skills going, because when you start networking, you're going to be talking about jobs, all right, and letting people know I'm looking for a job, and you get out there and you do that. So I tell people, get out from behind your computer. If you want to brush up on things, get out from behind your computer and go and start meeting people and doing things, and do things that are of interest to you, and see people that you believe can help you go somewhere. So I don't know if that fully answered your question, you know, but sitting behind your computer to get all your information probably won't be the way to go.
Yeah. Is there a way, Nancy, in sort of an informational interview, you could sort of prompt the person you're talking to say, you know, I haven't interviewed in a while. Appropriate thing to bring up and say, what was your last interview experience like? Or have some conversations with some people in your industry about interviewing.
Yeah, now I'm not sure. Who's run me through that again, Jen. So
say I haven't interviewed in a while and I'm not sure where to start. My network's kind of small, but I reach out to someone for an informational interview.
Okay.
Would it be appropriate in there to say, to talk to that person about, you know, their last interview experience, or, you know, ask them about interviewing skills? Or would you keep it more about the industry?
I would keep it more about the industry, because what you're going to do is you're actually in an interview. All right. So you're going to walk away from that interview knowing what worked and what didn't work. Okay. So you just got to keep track of, oh yeah, that was a good question. That got an answer. That person knows I'm interested in him or her or them, and this experience is going somewhere, or that felt really flat, it didn't work. So just keep track of how your conversation flows and the things that come out of that.
Awesome. All right. We have another networking one here. Now that we're on the networking theme. So I don't know many people. You say we should network. How do I build my network and meet with people? And then can I do it online? Which I think we know your answer.
Right. Yeah. No, get out. Get out from behind your computer. You can use LinkedIn to make good connections, but you need more than that. All right. Now just think about what you're trying to do. All right. You're trying to get a job. Your goal is to get your resume on top of the pile. That's your goal. Okay. You want your resume to get noticed, to be on the, you know, one of the top 3. Well, it gets on the top of the pile because somebody puts it there. All right. So this is really the value of networking. The value of networking is in meeting people and developing connections. Those connections are developed because you're interested in them, not because you want them interested in you. So, you know, that's very Dale Carnegie talk, but it's really true. People respond to people who are interested in them. Well, really the only way to build those connections, the best way, is person to person. And now that COVID is starting to be a little bit behind us, obviously not the whole way, it is possible to get out and meet people. And it doesn't mean your only job prospects are local. That's not true. Here we are, we're all meeting each other via Zoom. But you want to meet people, and people will introduce you to other people. And, the best way to connect with people is live, if you can do it. If you can't, then there are other ways, and Zoom is a good one. But go do something. Just go do something. Go to a play if you're interested in plays. Go to church. Go to the synagogue. Go do the things that are natural for you to do in the places you like to do them, and start to meet people. So.
That's great. I love thinking about, I think we often think of networking as very business, but you can use these other avenues of your life, your hobbies, things you're passionate about, to expand your network.
Right. And then business-wise, I'll give you a great example. So let's talk about business networking. So let's say you're interested in public relations and you're in Denver. There's a Public Relations Society of America in Denver. So, research the organizations that are germane to what you're doing. All right, so that PRSA group is going to have a monthly meeting that you can go to attend. It might cost you a little bit to go to the meeting if there's a lunch or something. But that's where you're going to meet people and network in that industry. So look for those opportunities. Just yesterday, I got an email from a gal that, so I ran an art center. We had a cocktail party. A gal who was new in town came to the cocktail party. She didn't know anybody. My husband was talking with her. She was looking for a job in marketing. He had been working with a nonprofit in the community that was looking for a marketing director. She's in that job. She's been in that job now for 2 years, and she loves it. He didn't hire her. He just made the connection for her. But it's because she was physically there. She met him. They got to talking. She was right up front. I'm looking for a job. I'm new in town, and I'm in marketing. And he went right away. Oh, you need to talk here. So those things happen when you get out there. So I'd say get out there.
Love hearing success stories like that.
Yeah, it was her email yesterday. It was great.
That's awesome. All right. So it looks like we have time for about one more question. This one's kind of fun. So Nancy, do you have any embarrassing interview stories that you would be willing to share with the audience?
Embarrassing interview stories. Well, I already shared the one, right, where the guy just said, forget it, And, I grew up in this really nice family, and everybody talks to each other really nicely. This guy was not nice. He was, I knew I was. So here's what happened. All right, I had a portfolio of work, and the work was photography work, and then it was other artwork. All right, the photography work was beautifully mounted, right? The other artwork was nicely placed in the portfolio, but it wasn't all mounted. And so this is the guy who said, "Why are you wasting my time? You're a photographer. What are you doing here?" Right? It was clear to him I was a photographer. Okay, he was right. He was right. So, but I really left with my, my head down and just like emotionally ruined. So, yeah. So embarrassing. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've interviewed some people that have really done some bloopers, but I'll give you one good one. One good one. I was interviewing somebody for a job, and I had somebody on our team who joined me for the interview. So she wanted to ask a question, and the question was, what is the maybe the stupidest thing you've done, right? And this gal said, well, the stupidest thing was I was going to Europe, and I was looking to go find myself, and I my boyfriend wanted to come, and I said, okay, all right. So it was like really not what she wanted. And it was a disaster. And so my team partner said, and so what happened? What happened after that? Are you still with him? And she said, oh, yeah. So anyway, we knew that she, she was kind of revealing like she really screwed up this big important thing in her life, but she still wasn't really willing to fix it. It was a little more complex than that, but what she did was she said, I made this mistake, but no, I didn't fix it. So anyway.
Yeah.
So watch out for those questions in an interview. I think they're kind of tricky questions. I really don't like them. That wasn't my question, but people will ask you things like, what's the best thing you've done? And that's a good question. But what's the worst or stupidest thing? That, to me, that's not a good question, but you might get it. So be advised.
Yeah, don't tell us about how your current boyfriend is not the right boyfriend for you.
Right, exactly. So.
Awesome. Well, with a couple minutes left here, Nancy, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. So once again, Nancy, we want to thank you so much for coming, sharing your time and expertise with us. Thank you to all of our attendees and of course our campus partners for being here with us this evening. So I think we'll pull up a couple slides here. All right. So speaking of networking, if you haven't done so yet, please check out the Forever Buffs Network. It's a great place to meet fellow buffs, look for your next job, get some informational interviews, right? Connect with people who are like-minded. You already have a connection being Forever Buffs. So go ahead and visit foreverbuffsnetwork.com and create an account. Alumni can also utilize CU Boulder's alumni career services. You can work on informational tech or interview techniques and tools. They offer mock interviews if that's something you're looking at. So be sure to check out the career services website if you want to do that. All right. And then, of course, our wonderful speaker here. If we weren't able to get to your questions this evening or you have additional questions for Nancy, you can feel free to reach out to her at the email address shown here. Also, Nancy is offering a 20% discount on her book for those of you who attended tonight's event. I recommend it highly. So to claim your discounted copy, go ahead and email Nancy at the email address shown here within 24 hours.
Yeah, and I'll pick up the postage.
Well, wonderful. Thank you. I know a lot of people out there are going to be thrilled to have this book and to learn more from you.
Great. And I also encourage people to visit my website and subscribe to my newsletter. So at nancywilhelms.com, because it's full of tips and advice and information and talks about upcoming events and opportunities. So please join me. And I really do welcome hearing from you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, guys. And last but not least, if you'd like to learn more about the Forever Buffs Young Alumni Chapter, you can visit our website listed here. You can find us on social media channels at Forever Buffs Young Alumni. Once you get on the website, you can contact me directly. We do lots of networking events and getting to know kind of fellow buffs here in the Denver area. So yeah, with that, I just want to thank you again, Nancy, for your time. Thanks to all of our hosts. Have a great night and go Buffs.
Great. Thanks, Jen.